Thursday, August 14th. I am Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today on the show, we are talking about stress, anxiety, trauma in a time of wildfires, how to process it all, and the feeling you have right now, you're not alone with that. We're going to talk about this, plus updates and impacts on wildfires. All right, here we go. We're off and running on the show today. Continued wildfire coverage. And what we've been trying to do and what we've been doing all week, we try to get voices, local voices, voices sometimes in other places. We talk to folks who are impacted to get updates. And then we try to kind of make a different shift on themes. We did it last week as well. So today, as you just heard, right, I'm talking mental health. Before we get into it, I will say, just looking at the weather, right, 2 weather alerts, air quality warning, heat warning from Environment Canada, central, northeastern, eastern Newfoundland, as well as the northern Avalon Peninsula. Max temperatures today near 28 degrees. So then if you tuned into the show last week and I talked about the Climate Shift Index global map from Climate Central, so if you Google Climate Shift Index, you'll find it. For today, in St. John's, August 14th, 2025, the Climate Shift Index is 5, meaning climate change made the daily average temperature at least 5 times more likely. And as I've also said on this show, World Weather Attribution, which you can also look up, key messages on heat. And Ashley Brawlweiler was in here yesterday talking about the heat dome. Every heat wave in the world is now made stronger and more likely to happen because of human-caused climate change. We're talking carbon pollution. And it always has a point of note and caution with this on these messages from World Weather Attribution. And the point of note and caution is don't be too cautious. Heat waves are unilaterally linked to global warming. So there you go. Just a reminder, and it's really it's stuff you can look at and look up and just check out, right? Climate Shift Index, and also if you want to look up World Weather Attribution. This is all the stuff that I'm kind of running into and learning about as part of the Oxford Journalism Climate Network that I'm part of up until December. Global journalists around the world. I'm part of 100 learning about climate change, and this summer, gosh, here we are. Janine Hubbard is here, registered psychologist. I guess we'll talk about, normally I'd say the elephant in the room. In this case, it's the doggy in the room. Can you tell us who is, if like there's a panting in the corner, who is it? And let's talk about it.
There is, and I'll share that once we're done today. For the first time ever, I got an interview request yesterday from Adam, and I said, sure, I'm happy to come in studio so long as somebody can keep an eye on my dog, which is not a normal request for me to make or for you to receive.
You've been on the show a lot. I've interviewed you a lot over as the years tick by. So why is that this time, if you don't mind telling me?
Well, I'm a resident of Paradise, so I have been on evacuation watch since Monday night. Yeah. The evacuation alert actually came way closer to my house than is terribly comfortable. I'll be honest, I was scrambling and a friend was scrambling, looking at maps going, do I have to leave now? But it has meant, and I've given a good appreciation for, I can come into town, absolutely. There's lots of stuff that I can do. But I have an elderly and, high needs dog who can't be left at home because I couldn't get back to get her. And it is way too hot to be leaving a dog in, the car. And I sort of said the same. It's probably the same for a lot of single parents that, I can come, but I have a kid that somebody needs to hang out with for a little bit.
So Lola is having a nap right now here in the radio studio. I was speaking to Lola earlier, told me things are rough. I was like, yeah, no, they are, Lola. So there you go. Take a little rest. And we've got some water and snacks. And Lola likes to bark, which is fine. This is the situation we're in. And if Lola becomes very conversational, Arlette may take Lola for a little walk. But this is the reality of where we are and why I wanted to talk about Lola being here and thanking you to come in to talk about the fact that so the things I keep hearing from whether it's my family or neighbors or friends, there's a couple of things. It's as without the rain, things are crunchy, crispy when they walk, and then it's this thing about folks being on edge, obviously, right? Obviously, and the range of on edge. So if you are if you get an alert, if you have had to leave your home, right? If you're in a center waiting.
Even if you're just in town and getting all the smoke. I mean, we've been lucky out there. We might have been on alert, but the smoke was blowing the other direction.
Yeah, no, the other night, my wife and I watching television, and next thing you know, and we're down in Katy Kamkar, and it's just this, especially wood smoke, where it's always such, in Newfoundland and Labrador, wood smoke is such a comfort, in my experience, it's such a comforting smell. Growing up. And also as someone whose house burned down as a kid, still got through that and still find wood smoke to be comforting. Just talk to me about, talk about all this.
Interesting. Well, and it's interesting because, and I normally associate helicopters with search and rescue or medevac. And can I tell you, the sound of choppers right now going back and forth is the most soothing, reassuring sound. That's a new association, right?
Well, and upstairs, the rain, we had a conversation in the newsroom too, because there's like right now in St. John's, looking outside, there's some dark clouds over here. And Karen Pauls is down, CBC Network reporter, sent an email to everyone saying, we're driving through rain. I actually felt it was emotional, actually, when I saw that, because of just where we are.
Oh, listen, I think when we finally get it, I'm just going to go stand out in the lawn and...
I know. Yeah, it's
just soak it up.
Because
So what I can
how do we start? How do we process this stuff?
Well, it's funny, and I was talking to Jen on the morning show earlier in the week. I've spoken on this topic so many times. I know the literature, I know the research, I know all of the general advice. This is the first time I have lived it acutely, and I have a very different appreciation. Not that I didn't before it, but there is something. I think in particular, what you start to see is, that hypervigilance. That because you are constantly looking for new news. Are we going to get an alert? Are we going to get an update? What's happening? And for at least the first day or so, that led to a lot of social media scrolling, which, even though I keep preaching, don't do that, at the time, that was kind of my only way of being reassured that I knew what was going on. I hate to say it, but the evacuation alert was the best thing possible, because then I was like, well, I can't sleep through that.
Right.
So if anything happens overnight, I am going to hear about it. Maybe I can relax a little bit more. But just that I said I nearly jumped out of my skin when my phone alarm went off that I had set and forgotten that I'd set it. So the disrupted sleep, I joked the other night, I knew I got a little bit of sleep because I had a bit of a nightmare. And then I kind of was semi-lucid saying, I see glowing light coming through the curtains. Oh, no. Then I realized it was the street light.
Yeah.
But...
This is where we are, right? That thing of on edge, kind of amped up.
Yeah.
Right? Like things are,
so
mind working overdrive.
Easy to tear up, easy to get angry, like whatever your default emotional kind of reaction is. But also, just the typical people have not been sleeping. It is so hot. And a lot of people, haven't been able to use like air conditioners if they even had them. Yeah. The windows have had to be closed. So the heat, the smoke, like that all has a physical effect on us that is likely to put us more on edge. I mean, there's again, I've talked about that before. So add all of that onto the kind of the perfect storm. And so I want to really normalize that, in kids, the stress is going to look a little different. Like it's going to look different for all of us. And also some of the normal coping strategies. You and I have talked about that, like whether it's going for a run outdoors.
Thank you. Let's wait one little second there, Dr. Hubbard, because the other thing we're doing on the show today, everyone, is we're doing some check-ins on everyone, and we've got Chief Brad Benoit of Miawpukek First Nation on the line. I wanted to get in touch. Chief, how are folks in Miawpukek doing today?
I'm busy. I'm very busy. I've been running around.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you taking a couple of minutes. So the highway's closed. What are there's an operations center set up there. What's happening in Conn River, Miawpukek for helping people in the community for what's happening?
Right now, we're just monitoring our supplies and keeping an eye on the fuel levels. Yeah. We've had arrangements to get supplies here. There's some confusion there on the go, but we're working through that now. Some essential supplies, Pampers, baby formula, things like that we usually don't have in the community, a whole lot in the community to begin with. We're trying to get that here, and we're like I said, we're always planning for the worst just in case. We don't want to be be caught in a bad situation. So we're preparing for, like, if we have to evacuate, or just taking stock of how many boats we have in the community, just in case. But God forbid that we do have to evacuate the community.
I mean, this isn't the first time you've gone through this. What have you learned over the last few years of just how to prepare from other times?
But in 2022, when we had the fire first, I wasn't actually chief, but I was on council, and I think we learned a nice bit about it. It's just, what do we have in the community, as in for stock, like for supplies and stuff like that. We learned what we have here, so that's a bit more faster figuring out.
Yeah, I mean, to go from 2022 and that learning lesson, and now here we are, again, the highway is closed, but you're talking about, okay, we're looking at boats, we're looking at supplies, we're talking about preserving fuel. How's the healthcare situation for like, I know people can't get to their appointments if things are closed, but is there any emergency healthcare needed right now, or how's it looking?
We actually have 3 MPs in the community, so they could take care of that. I do believe the province has arranged for to be lifted by helicopter.
Okay. Yep.
If anything, any big emergencies, but as in stuff in our community, we could deal with a fair bit.
Is there anything else that's needed in the community, or anything else you think folks should know about what's going on?
The thing is, communication seems to be a broken thing there now for us. We're getting updates and everything, but we're not directly communicated with. It's getting confusing. We just had an issue with our supplies, so that's frustrating to me.
Yeah, so with that, when you say communication with the provincial government?
Yes, well, I've been communicating with our MHA. He's been good, but it seems like there's missing somewhere.
Okay, so yeah, you're asking for you've got the MHA there, but when it comes to like the higher up level, when it's ministers and some of that communication, you would like more of a direct line of communication for what is happening and how you are responding to the highway being closed off and the wildfire, and at this point in time for what is happening.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, that message is out. If there's anything else, if you need to get anything else out there, Chief, if there's any other part of a conversation, please get back in touch with us. We're here for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the rush here. Like I said, I've been very busy just trying to figure things out, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you, Chief. Chief Brad Benoit there, Miawpukek First Nation. Yeah, obviously a very busy person, but and I'll go back to today. Like, we're talking about mental health. We're talking about wildfires. Dr. Janine Hubbard is here, registered psychologist. Again, when people are on alert, so if it's Miawpukek, the Kanakar Peninsula, you've got folks to the north of that fire as well, Conception Bay North, Paddy's Pond. As everyone is living through this in different ways, it can feel isolating. There can be a big mix of emotions. So let's continue on from the chat we were just having.
Sure, and I think everybody is appreciating that urgency and that need to run and do things when you have to do them. Yeah. So thank you for that conversation. No, we were just starting to talk about normal coping strategies that you might use. Like, I know you're someone who's a runner.
Yep.
Well, that's great until it's 30 degrees and you're choking on smoke. And
it gets a lot harder.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I was joking, but not joking the last couple of nights. I mean, yes, I enjoy, an occasional beer on a hot day or a glass of wine after a long day. And a couple of friends and we were joking, going, I would really like a glass of wine right now this evening. And going, nope, because I might have to drive at a moment's notice. And again, for me, that's fine. I can joke about it. But for people who do have substance use issues or addiction issues, it really highlights, either that need to really reach out. This is not the time to be hiding it, behind corners. This is the time to be reaching out for help and saying, I am really struggling, and either I need somebody to get me through this so that I'm not using, or if you are using, making sure that you have an emergency backup plan, that you've at least acknowledged to somebody, I'm going to need you to drive my vehicle, or I'm going to need to get a ride with you, or if something happens quickly, I'm going to need your help. And, making use of the resources, but not being shy about it. This is not the time to keep it hidden.
Yeah, and a lot of people will have in recovery, there's support networks.
Yes.
And in times like these, this is what they're for.
Yeah.
Reach out. Do not be alone. Reach out for that help because it's an awfully stressful time I keep saying on edge, but it's an awfully stressful time for everyone. So your support networks.
So far, my coping has turned to really cool bubble baths before bed and ice cream. So,
Yeah. And there's good people are going to have a bit like we talk. Like I had ice cream the other night, which was part of it, and like going for a run. Like there's different things that people are going to have when it comes to coping, right? What you talked about kids, young kids processing this and wildfires. What? How do you? And I know you're talking to Jen White, because that great conversation with Jen on the St. John's Morning Show. I was like, and obviously, you always like having you on the show, but I was like, gosh, I'd like to get Janine Hubbard back in, Dr. Hubbard back in to do the hour and to kind of explore a little bit further on this. But talk to us about the kids.
Yeah, well, and I think it's important for all of us to remember that there are various stages of coping and healing and grief and trauma that will be a long-term process here. So we are currently in the very acute phase of things. Then there's going to be either as the alerts dissipate or people are able to go back home and see what is there. And then there's the long term, because we are seeing results up to at least a year in terms of some trauma symptoms lingering, and very different for people who've lost, that's kind of a separate category. But for kids right now, I totally expect, some regressions in behavior, lots of questions. Again, that disrupted sleep, that's going to be happening just because the house is hot, let alone, everything else. So it's the find out what their worries are. Don't dismiss them. Again, kids often, it's but we're going to lose such and such. And you're thinking, okay, that's such a minute issue. But if that's the concern for your kid, either help problem solve. Yeah, we can put that in a pot if that's, or we can make sure that that's okay. Or, it's helping them to kind of figure out how to cope, pack their go bag, all of those kind of things. But giving them enough information, being honest about your emotions. It's interesting. There's a subgroup of kids kind of around that 8 to 12 age, that some of them do better finding out information about wildfires. So becoming little experts, like, oh, well, did you know it moves faster if it's going, I don't know if it's uphill or downhill, but there are facts about how wildfires develop and grow and are contained that can be really reassuring. Even I did this week learning, what does out of control mean? It actually doesn't mean the flailing Kermit. Thank you, BC Wildfire. They did a wonderful little meme and understanding of what does that mean even?
Yeah. Is it for kids like that? Is it empowering or what is it?
Yeah, well, because the thing with wildfires, like a lot of natural disasters, two things that are going to increase anxiety: lack of control and uncertainty. So understanding a topic gives you a little bit of a sense of control.
We've got Todd Kettner on the line, clinical psychologist who teaches at the University of Victoria, who was also involved with the Canadian Red Cross disaster response several years ago. Todd, thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know, especially given the time difference between here and the West Coast. Can you talk to us a bit? Dr. Janine Hubbard is here with me, clinical psychologist. I know you know what's happening here on the East Coast, but talk to us a bit. And the reason why we wanted to get in touch with you was your experiences working with Red Cross Mental Health and Psychological Support Team in Manitoba a couple summers ago. Just shed some light on that and what you were doing and what you've kind of learned through it.
Yeah, well, as part of the mental health and psychosocial support team with Red Cross, a number of us were stationed in Winnipeg as people came in from various communities, many in the north, many isolated, many with only one road in and out, just like some of the communities you're talking about there in Newfoundland. And, almost 4,000 people displaced for months and months, dispersed, over, I think, 17 hotel locations, and people live their lives in the challenges that they have that just get magnified and amplified with the stress of being dislocated and worried about their pets and their family members who are still back home trying to save some things. And yeah, it was just really eye-opening for me, even having been a clinical psychologist for 3 decades now, to see the level of chronic stress that people were under.
The news here today, the clarity about some of the loss that has happened. There's a fire, it's called the Kingston Fire. And right now, according to the Premier this morning, about 100 homes are destroyed. And that number will be updated. How do you help folks get like, when you know that they're going to be unhoused, right, for a while, and they're in emergency shelter type situations or with family? What do we need to think about for helping folks on treating trauma when it comes to something like that?
Oh, excellent question. And I think it's we've got the superimposed acute stress for being evacuated and lives and pets under threat and losing a home. And it's all in the backdrop of a lot of climate grief right now, right? Like, people are attuned to this even before it hits close to home. So, for example, we just had friends from California who are now almost a year into displacement from the Altadena fires that raged through the Los Angeles area, and they came up to visit, and it's going to be at least another year and a half before they get back into a rebuild house. And, you know, the connection to each other, this is one of the things that's so important in these communities, is people reach out to each other, and the best of our humanity comes to the fore sometimes, and we can support each other. And then, as other guests have said, this being able to process it in terms of understanding just the facts of the matter, and being able to connect with kids connecting with parents. And then, Canada in most jurisdictions does a decent job of bringing in disaster support specialists, whether it's through Red Cross or provincial services, to be with people and to help the people that are helping the people deal with a lot of emotional toil, just by being frontline clerks, taking their information and trying to help them figure out IDs and all of those other things that are lost in the fire. So yeah, it's a big deal.
Todd, tell me, if you don't mind sharing this, but you went through a personal experience in 2015 in Nelson, BC. Can you tell us about it?
24 families got together and spent 3 or 4 years finding property and building a co-housing community. A lot of it was around our ideas on climate resilience and wanting to live on a small footprint and grow some of our own food, protect the forest behind us. So we had 26 acres. We built on 6 and saved the rest, right? The day after the last home was completed and the last family moved in, a huge wildfire was sparked on the ridge above us. We had trees candling and exploding. You could hear it. You could feel the heat, embers coming down, sprinkling the roofs. And for 3 weeks, kids from 1 month old to our elder, who was 88 at the time, in the community, were on evacuation alert and ready to go at a moment's notice with one way in and out, and water bombers going overhead. And yeah, it was interesting to be part of that experience personally and helping our kids through it.
How did everyone process that? And was it like the factor of time plus conversations? Like what was involved?
Yeah, once again, the community support.
Yeah.
It's one thing to put sprinklers on your own house. It's a whole other thing to be helping put sprinklers on the houses of elders in the community who can't physically do that. And so the altruism is important, the being in it together, and then knowing that the community supports you. And, for the amazing job that wildland firefighters do, being able to give them support through, just baking for them as they came up and down our road for 3 or 4 weeks and putting up big signs. And so the coming together is really important. And, as other guests have said, if there's residual kind of stuff after, several months, then maybe seeking out some psychosocial mental health support can be helpful too.
Okay. Janine, anything to chime in on there? Because I'll just, before I let Todd go.
Oh, absolutely. Just normalizing that. Right now, all of that stress and that community seeking support, I love the example that's there. And again, it's Newfoundland and Labrador. We see that. That's one of the things that we are known for is communities, rallying and supporting. But I'm glad you've got the examples, and I think really important, as you've highlighted, those longer-term needs.
Yeah. Todd Kettner, thank you so much for this.
Yeah. All the best to you out there.
Cheers.
Our hearts are with you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Todd Kettner there, clinical psychologist, teaches at the University of Victoria. So lots of insight there. I'm Adam Walsh. This is The Signal. Today we are talking about mental health in a time of wildfires, in a time of extreme weather. Marching through the show, we're doing some check-ins. So folks, as you listen to us, if you're in an impacted area, if there's something you want to talk about, we're here. 709-722-7111. 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206. The Signal at cbc.ca. When I say impacted area, I actually mean the whole province, because it is everyone thinking about this and moving through it day by day together. Janine Hubbard, a registered psychologist, is here with me in studio. And so is Lola, your dog.
Who's been snoring loudly.
Looks awake now, though. Doing some panting now. So if folks are wondering I don't know if the mics are picking it up, but it's my first time in studio with a doggy snoring.
There you go. Yeah. And I'm not taking it personally.
I'm not taking it personally either. I didn't even think about that side of it. But, hey... Okay, this is a quick aside, and I think, in times of stress, a little bit of humor is okay.
It's vital.
Last year, I was picking up a pizza, and someone was like, "You're Adam Walsh from The Signal." The person working there. I was like, "I am." I was wearing a hat that said it, not my name, but had the show on it. And I thought it was going to be a show compliment. It was, but the person was like, "My dog loves your show," and I was like, "Oh."
Okay.
I was like, thanks. So there's a dog here sleeping, and also maybe a dog out there listening.
You raise a really vital point. Yeah. Humor is so important through all of this, because again, that's one of our coping styles. To me, it's essential. I know it can occasionally sound a little,
it depends on the joke and the humor and the crowd that you got. Yeah, exactly.
But I think there are some vitally important things. If nothing else, I'm poking fun of even some. We've heard people talk about, I evacuated and I made sure I brought a bag of carrots, and I'm not sure why. I thought that was important.
Yeah.
So even just kind of joking a little bit about some of the choices that we've made in terms of in an initial, panic. What do I think is important? What don't I think is important? Did you pack a hairbrush? Did you pack socks or underwear? Or what did you include instead?
Yeah. And that's,
that's the kind of stuff we can make light of, because it really doesn't have huge consequence.
Exactly. We've got someone on the line here, Dr. Katy Kamkar, a clinical psychologist based in Toronto, the past chair of the CPA's traumatic stress section. How are you doing? Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Because we're working with Janine here on the show, and myself and our Lazarenko were talking, and we got in touch with folks, and your name came up, so we figured we would reach out because to complement what Dr. Hubbard is saying as well, trauma, wildfires, extreme weather, climate disasters. What do we know about how trauma manifests from these things?
Yes, and thank you so much for covering that very important topic, and it is very devastating. One thing we know is that natural disasters can be very severe, and there are also unexpected events, right? So caused by those environmental processes. So they can occur suddenly with no warning, right? And often can cause large-scale damage. So examples of natural disasters: earthquake, hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, and here, of course, the wildfires. One thing that we want to keep in mind is that natural disasters often differ from other trauma exposures in that they are typically non-interpersonal and they're indiscriminate, right? They don't discriminate. So those events can devastate communities, disrupt our daily life, routine, and it can have profound effects, right? Not only on the physical environment, but also on the mental health and the emotional well-being. And so there are, as we often hear and see, tremendous losses and stressors that can be caused by natural disasters, from physical losses, emotional, psychological stressors, and of course those social and financial stressors. So again, moving from those destruction of homes and belongings, right, and essential infrastructures that, the roads and bridges and so on, physical injuries and loss of life, to emotional psychological stressors, right? The fear and the anxiety about our personal safety, the uncertainty again about the future, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen right now, maybe in the next minute or the next hour, and grief and mourning, of course, right, for the loved ones, community members who have been lost. But the grief also, it could be of our daily routine, of our belonging, of our home. And of course, the trauma from directly experiencing, but also witnessing the disasters occurring. So, and this heightened stress, of course, by the displacement, and at times, again, the lack of our basic needs, again, that could lead to the social and financial stressors, separation from our family members, friends, and community, employment impacted, disruption of our income. So a host of those stressors that could lead to grief and, of course, have tremendous devastating mental health impact.
So with all of that, how do we go about helping folks, or for folks who need help? What are the steps then for the necessary help from the crisis in the moment to the weeks and the months, and also, and I'm thinking whether it's folks in areas that if they've lost their homes, or also the trauma on first responders, the down the road stuff too.
Very important. You are so right. So there's always here, as we know, the role of the community support in recovery, right? Community connections are essential for our recovery because they can help individuals rebuild their emotionally, socially, and practically. The ways community support can help is very much through emotional support. So the shared experiences can help to reduce isolation and help people process their emotions, normalize the emotions, right? Acknowledging the feelings. But also practical assistance, right? Providing food, water, shelter, healthcare, rebuilding assistance. But then also it helps through social connectedness, right? What are the events and community spaces that can help to strengthen the bonds? And of course, always professional support services, having access to, it could be mental health professionals, counselors, clinical psychologists, crisis worker, outreach programs. When we look at those community and group interventions, we often hear that, yes, there are psychological first aid. They really very much focus on stabilizing and supporting survivors in the immediate aftermath of a disaster and normalizing the stress reactions, right? And then there's also the skills for psychological recovery. How can we equip ourselves with coping strategies, right? And establishing agency. How can I reestablish a sense of control amid chaos? How can I focus here on what I have control over here and learning to engage in healthy coping mechanisms. So all of those become both approaches are structured, they're evidence-informed, and they help towards immediate scalable mental health support. And again, always searching for psychological and mental health support as well. One thing we want to keep in mind is always as well the post-traumatic growth, right? Yeah. Post-traumatic growth is the positive changes that can occur through the process of coping with trauma. And it does not mean the absence of distress, of course, but the possible areas of growth include our personal growth, right? My greater belief in my own ability to face challenges. Post-traumatic growth also refers to improved relationship, like how can I deepen my connections with my family, friends, new friends, community, but also refers to appreciation of life, gratitude for my daily experiences. What are the new possibilities that I can explore in my life directions, career, hobbies, and spiritual growth for a new sense of meaning and purpose. So all of those that we can have a look into.
Janine, anything you want to add?
I think the big message that I want to give everyone in the province around trauma is remembering that there are people who will have suffered immense loss and be just fine. And there are those out there that maybe, East End of St. John's, no personal impact, no direct impact, who may feel trauma responses, because remembering that what we understand, you don't just have to have experienced it. It's the potential risk or exposure to it. So as time goes on, because I think there are often people who are really continuing to feel those symptoms and saying, but what do I have to complain about? I was never in, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Yeah, or even I was inconvenienced for a couple of days, but I'm fine. Why am I having so much trouble letting go? So remembering that you don't have to have suffered the worst of the experience to experience trauma symptoms, and not being worried about, if I reach out, they're going to, dismiss me and say, well, you're fine. You didn't lose anything.
Yeah,
you were okay.
There's almost like a kind of guilt that can come with that people feel.
There's a whole lot of guilt we can talk about for sure. But no, I really want to put out to people who aren't immediately impacted that you can still experience a trauma response.
Yeah. Dr. Katy Kamkar, thank you so much for talking about, giving us some of your expertise and for some of this context today on trauma and helping folks.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good day and be safe.
Thank you. Dr. Katy Kamkar is a clinical psychologist based in Toronto and past chair of the traumatic stress section for the CPA. So we're working through, right? We've had we talked to Todd Kettner on the West Coast. We just talked trauma with Dr. Kamkar. Janine Hubbard, Dr. Hubbard's with us for the full show. Where's your head thinking now after those couple of conversations? What else are you thinking about?
Well, it's reminding me of kind of some insights and some reflection that I had overnight as we were planning for this, and you and I were speaking, and it's the yes and discussion. It's the idea of having these conflicting emotions. It could be I was spared and my neighbor, I feel grateful because I maybe wasn't impacted, or I was lucky and my neighbor wasn't, and the guilt that I might feel around that. But also because you are going to hear positive messages, and I'm going to be sending them as well, because we do know Newfoundlanders rally like we support. Listen, this place supports one another like nobody's business. And so, yes, we know that things will rebuild, things will return to a new normal, and we can talk about lessons learned, because this is unfortunately in the same way that I know how to prepare for a hurricane or a blizzard. I'm coming out of this now with a much better appreciation of, this is how I prepare for wildfire season. So we're going to learn some lessons, all of us, but you can have the, yes, I'm grateful. Yes, I'm incredibly grateful. And I've said this, I'm grateful to the media. I'm grateful to the first responders. I'm grateful to government. And I can still be worried for people who've lost homes. It's yes, I'm grateful that everyone's safe. There's been no loss of life. I can be grateful for that and still be experiencing grief and mourning and anger and sadness. And it's okay. And in fact, it's really normal to be having both of those emotions. But it can often be really challenging when you have people giving comfort going, well, but you're okay. You're safe, or, all of those. And I mean, I'm feeling all kinds of privilege at the things I've been able to do to immediately prepare for this. And so it's that yes, and that idea of having those conflicting emotions and feelings and thoughts, and kind of how to deal with those, and also how to talk to people who've been impacted without sounding, that toxic positivity, or, how do you communicate those kind of mixed messages?
Yeah, there's a lesson where I think thought process around intentionality and just kind of having a quick think, even for conversations and for words of consolation, or if you're trying to pick up, lift someone's spirits, just think a little bit about what you're going to say. This is The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Joining us on the line, Gabrielle Canon in California, senior climate reporter and extreme weather correspondent with The Guardian. Thank you for making time for this call.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you tell? I mean, I've got the list of. I've got the Guardian open here to give folks an idea about some of what you filed on. Let me see. Democrats demand answers on cuts to firefighters during critical fire season. Man accused of throwing sandwich at U.S. border agent charged with assault. That was the random one I picked. But anyways, obviously there's a big old range. They hit an underwater Eden of California's Galapagos, where seals and grizzly bear-sized bass reign. The U.S. is woefully underprepared for wildfire season, say insiders. The stakes are life and death. So, can you just expand a bit on your work and on your beat as the a senior climate reporter and extreme weather correspondent?
Sure. Yeah, there definitely is a lot of range there. Yeah. You've also caught me on the breaking news shift. So when a guy throws a sandwich, you gotta cover it. But,
yeah. No, of course. Yeah. No, it's all there. It all gets covered.
But yeah, primarily my focus is on extreme weather, is on these climate events, and I really covered the climate crisis as it's unfolding. And so a lot of my work, especially based out here in the West, is looking at natural disasters through that lens of human impact, of potential for preparation, for change, and then, of course, covering the events themselves. And so that's everything from floods to droughts to earthquakes, and then, of course, wildfires. I've been covering wildfires since about 2017, so I've gotten to see just this range and really a change in the way that these fires have behaved and have been on the scene for several of the biggest blazes in the West just in the last few years.
What have you seen change?
It's really come down to fire behavior. So, of course, fires have always burned in these regions. I know they've burned up in the regions where you guys are. What we're seeing is an escalation in catastrophic fire. And so that's the type of fire that, of course, scorches everything that it touches, that leaves behind damaged landscapes. And then, of course, we're seeing fires that get into communities and become urban conflagrations that are much more devastating and destructive. At the same time, we're seeing conditions that are creating more potential for ignitions and more potential for ignitions to spread rapidly once they, of course, ignite. So all in all, with the rising heat, we're seeing a drying effect. And then also just with the rapid escalation and the intensity and increased frequency, we're seeing that drawdown in resources and just a more challenging environment for our first responders.
Yeah, I started the show by so the island I live on, Newfoundland, which is where the St. John's, which is where the show is out of. Average precip in a year is 1,400 millimeters. We've had zero. It looks like we're getting some today, but up to today, we've had no rain. And then the first 2 months of the year, we had half the amount of precip as normal, and plus higher heat temps, records broken, all-time records broken this summer. And then, I started the show by saying the climate shift index global map index is 5. So the weather, the temperature in St. John's today, at least 5 times more likely that it was made by impacted by climate change. So this is where we are. I'm talking to you in California about all these changes. When it comes to covering that side of the climate story, so we've got the extreme weather, and then having folks, the readers of The Guardian, kind of understand how stuff is changing. What's that battle and what's that work been like for you to get the information out, to get people to really understand how and why things are changing?
Yeah, like you've mentioned, it's just such an escalation in these conditions. I think really what it comes down to is striking that balance, right? I know so many of your guests before I came on are talking about just trying to prepare both emotionally and prepare families, things like that, for this crisis, for these natural disasters. And so I think when I'm trying to approach both bringing in maybe some of the scientific aspects, looking at the climate crisis, of course, talking about the news as it's happening, the areas in which these fires are happening and the people who are impacted, I really am trying to find that balance of making sure that we're not increasing the trauma, if we're not, increasing fear and creating, stories that aren't going to actually have a desired impact, which is, of course, to help educate people, to help people kind of wrap their brains around what is happening and what they can do about it. So I think, when it comes down to it, obviously it's important to capture the specifics and the nuance and the context for what's driving these fires. It's also important to capture the human story of, people and communities who are coming together, some of the ways that people are either preparing or looking for resilience or even healing, even in the midst of really horrifying events. And I think also helping people understand that fire is a part of our lives, right? Like especially in these landscapes that traditionally are more prone to burn, this is not something that, once the fires are put out, we can sort of close the lid on it and say, wow, that was bad. We can move on. It's constantly kind of looking to the future to see how can we live with fire in a more constructive way, and how can we make sure that the landscapes recover in a way that if they continue to burn, they can do so in a safer or at least in a more, positive way.
Are you seeing governments make the right moves? I know it will depend on state, and if we're talking about the federal or the federal national aspect of the United States, there have been cuts federally by the U.S. president. But are you seeing bigger, better moves for the future in different, in California, for example, for preparation?
Yeah, I mean, California has really risen to this challenge. And our state fire officials are some of the best in the world in terms of getting people prepared and responding to flames once they've erupted. We are also seeing, though, just crunched resources. I mean, once these escalating conditions create an escalating fire situation, it really it can quickly change in a moment's notice. And so ultimately, I think what we're learning is that this does take a fair amount of collaboration, that people at a local level can be really impactful in terms of getting their own areas ready, making sure their own homes are ready, and also making sure that they're ready to leave when fires are coming closer. So there's that aspect of it. But we also do require a fair amount of federal support, and especially in the U.S., where we have sort of these different jurisdictions. And of course, fires don't care about boundaries. They don't care about borders. And so having that open line, having that ability to work across agencies is essential. And what we're seeing now is sort of the drawdown of federal sources and also federal support. And so as we see changes in this country, we obviously know there are agreements that go across borders between countries, and so there's a concern there. There's internationally, I know the international community is concerned about even just the United States shifting gears on naming and measuring and studying the climate crisis. So ultimately, a lot of changes just in the last year. We're seeing federal support wane. We're seeing federal support for science, for forecasting, and of course, then for firefighting resources start to decline.
Last question for you. And this is kind of just me thinking of reporters out in the field. What have you learned about staying safe? And we only have like a couple minutes left, but what have you learned about staying safe when it comes to covering wildfires when you're out there?
It's so important, and it is a challenge. I mean, in that moment, your situational awareness has to be at its height. So I think gear is really important. Yeah, I've seen some journalists out there that aren't equipped to be there. So having the right kind of clothes, having the right kind of facial coverings. I mean, I wear goggles in the field, like you name it. Sometimes if you're in a situation where you're either in a damaged forest or in a damaged home, you want your head covered. But it's also, I think, making sure that you're aware of your surroundings. So, if I'm in the backcountry on a fire, it can be something that either ignition starting up again. It can be making sure that you're not doing your job from a place where you're going to get in the way of first responders and firefighters. And then, of course, covering fires in an urban landscape presents all sorts of hazards, from down power lines, obviously water mains that are open, and then, of course, the destruction itself. And so on that front, it's really making sure you have the experience of the year, you are in communication with your team so they know where you are, and then just being aware of where those firefighters are. And then for the subject of your show today, making sure that you are able to take time after being in that environment, after seeing the destruction and seeing sometimes death and injuries and animals, to really process what you've seen and to make sure that you as a journalist are able to get the help and support that you need.
Gabrielle Canon, thank you for taking time to talk to us today about your expertise, about what you're doing, and for just giving us that insight. And I know it's morning time for you too, so much appreciated.
I'm delighted to speak with you. Thanks so much.
All right, be well. Gabrielle Canon there, a journalist with The Guardian in California who covers wildfire. So if you, all you got to do is if you look up Gabrielle, so Gabrielle, Canon, Canon, The Guardian, you can look at all of Gabrielle's work covering the climate crisis, wildfires out of the United States. And Janine Hubbard's still here, obviously, with me. And so is the best doggy in the world today, Lola, who is here in studio, snoring away on the floor of the studio. Great work, Lola. Thank you, Janine.
No, excellent point, and I think something we'll continue to talk about, because we've seen with some of our hurricanes that, oceanfront property, while very appealing, perhaps has some drawbacks. I live on the edge of a heavily forested area.
Yeah, you're in the WUI, the Wildland-Urban Interface.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm very happy
you
with
like
that.
The WUI,
But it is going to get people thinking. So that was some great commentary. And I think we're going to get some good lessons learned coming from all of this.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm just as we move on now with the show today, and I'm just looking at, there's an email. Let me see this. We got 2 minutes left, roughly, to the show. Wondering, hi, during COVID, the CPA had a national list of psychologists for each province who were willing to offer pro bono services for healthcare workers. Are there any pro bono services? I don't know if you're aware of that, Dr. Hubbard, for responders offered by psychologists. Are you aware of anything out there these days?
Really excellent question. And I'll be curious, because during the briefing this morning, I was definitely hearing from NLHS that they have plans to offer things like community groups, things directed. Mm-hmm. So I think it's early stages. Yeah. And I was joking before we started here, a little bit joking, because again, humor, because I was on APNL at the time of the Fort McMurray forest fires, and we mobilized and we had this great community. It was going to be a come on in, ask your questions, get lots of support. And we did it too early. Yeah. And we had more psychologists in the room than we had people reacting. So I think there's good research, and I think we're going to see some really good things moving forward. I think it's probably going to be more on a provincial basis than a national basis. But like I say, certainly psychology community is well attuned, the mental health community, and I'm hearing NLHS, I'm not aware of the specifics of their plans, but certainly we heard this morning that plans are underway.
Literally 1 minute left before the music starts at the end of the show. Any final thoughts for today to leave us with on this theme of mental health and processing?
Reach out. Don't be afraid to acknowledge when you're having rough feelings. Connect. I think I've spoken more to my neighbors this week than I probably have in the past year, and that's not a bad thing. No. So acknowledge it's okay. These feelings are normal, even if you're not immediately impacted, but take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. If you can't do your regular self-care, figure out some alternatives and some ways to get through this, and we will get through it in one way or another.
Yeah, and if it we mentioned before, if you're on social media, maybe sometimes too much, take a break from it.
Yes,
right?
please.
And take that time.
Yeah.
To have news is important, yep. But also having time away from it.
And reliable news sources.
Reliable news sources. So CBC Radio 1, cbc.ca/Adele, On the Go with Chrissy Holmes this afternoon, Here and Now. With
and the government briefings.
Brawlweiler, the government briefings, all of that stuff. Speaking of breaks, well, first of all, Dr. Janine Hubbard, thank you so much for this.
Thanks.
And Lola, the puppy dog, or the big doggy there on the floor for the whole show, good job. Good doggy. That is it for today's show, folks. I mentioned that social media break and that break from the news. Tomorrow we will have wildfire coverage as needed. But if nothing comes up, and we might have a couple updates off the top of the show, but tomorrow we're taking a break for conversation, and we're talking TV and movies and summer binge watching. We want something, just everyone. We can have a distraction hour tomorrow on the Signal of something different, and that's what we're going to do. I'll talk about what I've been watching all summer long. Until tomorrow, thank you, folks. Bye.